definitely not an expert on Zoom, but we'll see how we go. Kia ora, my name is Laura Hunt. I'm the Assistant Head of Maths at Mount Roscoe Grammar School and have been there for about 15 years now. I'm not an expert. I'm not from NZQA. I'm not from the Ministry of Education, so this is just me giving it my best shot in terms of my understanding around what the curriculum is and how we measure achievement and progress. I have popped a link at the top of in the chat, which will take you to a folder on Google Drive. What will be there is this presentation here, also the one that I presented at the Auckland Maths Association Maths Day at the end of last year, and any resources or assessments and stuff that I've created and popped that up there for you guys to have a look at as well. Please continue to ask questions as you go. I can see your chat through here, and obviously I'll be doing my presentation as well. So yeah, obviously, hopefully you've seen the new curriculum document before. I'm hoping, but that's okay if you haven't. But this is what they are expecting us to do for our reports. So having a narrative around what Max can do and his learning behaviours and what he's comfortable and confident with, his next learning step, which again is quite not prescribed, is prescribed by the curriculum and quite precise, may not necessarily be the language that our parents and caregivers might know, and then how they can support at home. We're also supposed to be measuring with all of our strands and using our 5-point scale from emerging through to exceeding, talking about their attendance and any assessment results on there, but also supposed to be having a visual from where they were from year 1, which is scary because I've got a 5-year-old, all the way through up to the end of year 10, and see where they were at the mid-year and where they ended up at the end of that year. So here's what is expected. The question is what is actually required? Because what we'll do is go big picture, and then we'll go down to those specifics around how we could do this. So there's information out there around the regulatory requirements, and we've had a big conversation with our senior leadership. We're starting to write our mid-year reports, which is due on Tuesday. And so what it boils down to, every slide has the reference about where it goes to Taharangi, which is the website around the curriculum. So if you want to see this in more detail or see what else is in that document, you can click on those links through there. So what is important? We need to use the progress descriptors of emerging, developing, consolidating, proficient, and exceeding for each of our knowledge strands. Then we need to give an overall progress descriptor both at the mid-year and at the end of the year mark, based on all of the strands that they've currently learned. And so that is very different to what is expected versus what is required. Don't know if you've had that conversation yet with your senior leaders, but that's where we've landed at the moment for our mid-year results at Mount Roscoe Grammar School. Any questions so far? Jump on in if you need. Okay, sweet. So the key word is expected, which is around exactly what we just saw in the exemplar report that they talked about. So these are the progress.
Sorry to interrupt, Laura. There's a question. You were asking about questions. There is a question from Lisa who's asking, when is this required? Is it compulsory yet?
So from what I've read, again, I'm not an expert. We are expected to report mid-year and at the end of the year. So our reporting deadlines at my school are for next week to then lead into parent-teacher interviews in the following couple of weeks. For what's in the green box on the slides now is what is required for this year. The expectation is currently still an expectation for this year, but it is not it's not required by law. But obviously that is a conversation that you need to have with your senior leaders, because when I showed my department this, they were freaking out. And the amount of work required to even try and start to create this comment bank would be a significant workload for anyone. I said about 10 hours, and then probably hours beyond that for people to start forming this for every single one of their students. Even for my department, they were feeling quite overloaded with just giving a overall teacher judgment for each of those strands and an overall one, with an additional workload for these reporting requirements. Okay, so these are our progress descriptors. I'm going to give you guys a moment to read that if you haven't read it before. And we do get further information about the progress descriptors. And there is on the document below, they have kind of what we've just read on the left-hand column, what that means for us as teachers. And then there is a third column, which I think if you're running on KMA, they do have a template for this report that kind of explains, like it's a printout going, hey, parents, this has changed. We're no longer talking about achieve merit excellence, but this is what the 5 descriptors are meaning. But I've deleted that for our point, for our session here. So it might be easier to work from exceeding backwards. So we're looking at those who are exceeding and keeping in mind that we are supposed to be teaching to the curriculum level, rather than being gap fillers, which is where you start to have a very full curriculum. So they're making connections, they're having deeper learning, they're using higher level thinking strategies, and they're able to reflect. And it's really interesting where they're not necessarily talking about content here, but they're talking about more learning behaviors and strategies that they might be using. So I would expect maybe a kid who's exceeding will be able to generalize rules, making conjecture, representing information in different ways within kind of the year level or that phase that they're working at. For proficient, we've got the students who are consistently and independently able to apply their understanding of all their skills. They are able to share and justify all of that kind of mathematical communication within problem-solving activities, that they're able to do that as well. But I think for us, we landed on that they are able to apply their knowledge to new contexts, and they can do that independently. Consolidating, they are increasing in independence and confidence and able to start to build their knowledge and be able to transfer it to new contexts. With developing, they probably need a lot of support, some guidance, they might need scaffolding within that. And that it's really interesting with emerging and developing that they're really looking at that acceleration and what we're doing as teachers to accelerate their progress, while emerging basically means significant support. It's interesting where, particularly with the massive jump that our students are going through, where some of the contents move down 1 to 2 years from high school. Like I taught my year 10s the other day around finding the distance between 2 points on a graph, which is coordinate geometry in level 2. I taught that to year 10s last week. Blew their minds that I was asking them to do that, like, why are we doing this? When a lot of our students are already coming in at least a year behind, maybe more for some of our rangatahi. And a lot of those kids who are behind don't have personalized learning plans, and they are fitting in emerging. And so I think one of our biggest things that we have to think about as a maths community is, what do we do? How do we accelerate those students' progress? Because it is ultimately our responsibility to not be gap fillers, but get these students to meet the curriculum level or what's expected for their year level. And I think that's going to be our biggest challenge. and I am already finding it challenging. So just a couple of questions. I wonder if we could map this onto Solo's taxonomy, which I believe probably a lot of you are familiar with. I don't again have all the answers for this, but it did feel like we could. Or could we map it like this? And so I'll talk about how we landed, but that's just a question: is could we map that way? So we get into some more detail. Are there any questions at this point?
Hi, I'm Mercy. I have a
Hi,
question.
Mercy. Yeah.
Regarding the topic, like I know each strand, we have to progress indicator says like whether the student is consolidating or emerging. And for example, if I'm testing a number topic with my students, and how do I interpret that into those progress marking? Like my current understanding is like if a student got like out of 100 marks 85, above 85 could be exceeding. I'm going on percentage base, but by looking at your bullet points, it's clearly mentioning that students able to transfer their skills to that new idea, new understanding, and it's like time consuming to look at each students and record those things. And is it practically possible, and how we can do best within the given time?
It's a fantastic question, Mercy. It's we didn't land quite the way that you have, and I'll explain that in a moment. I'll answer a couple more. I'll answer your question as we go through. But yeah, I have seen documents from primarily from the primary sector, where they have all of the skills at the top in every student and are ticking them off as they've shown evidence that they can meet those skills or the technique that they're supposed to be using. And when we've got 30 kids in a class times 2 or maybe 3 in year 9 or 10, that is a lot of evidence gathering, and unsustainable workload. And when we're already overloaded and we are facing 5 years of change, plus a lot of potential upskilling ourselves in our senior year levels, where a lot of the content's moving further down, I don't think that's manageable. But I also have a concern around, for example, when our test used to split. Oh, I'll show you shortly. I'll answer that one. I'll show you that a little bit later on. So in terms of our descriptors, we now have progress markers. So that's taking the whole curriculum and then synthesizing it down into what you see in front of you. I have some concerns. I don't feel like the year 1 progress marker fits very well with the curriculum document by the end of year 9. It's an okay one. My problems are like factors and multiples are in an earlier phase. So we did teach it in year 9 and 10 because it's obviously a great idea around when you move into algebra and just checking to see if your kids have times table knowledge and can play around with number. The including circles for measurement was interesting because circumference is in year 9, area for circles is in year 10. And what the last one around geometry, because we're studying geometry with our year 10s, that it solves problems involving angles on lines, which is in an earlier phase. Shapes, including circles. I'm like, hold on, circle geometry? That's not in the curriculum document that I've seen, but it shows up here. And so it looks like taking everything, let's just synthesize this down into what they should be able to do by the end of year 9 for those who are proficient. Likewise with year 10, obviously a little bit more, but this is something that we did consider when we were trying to make judgments on whether the students are proficient or not, just to kind of go, oh, if they can do that, but they can't do that, where would we place them? So, what did we do at Mount School? So there was a lovely document around on Taharangi around reviewing current practice. So we have been working on teaching to the Northeast as our professional learning, direction as a school. So we really wanted to make sure that we were upholding principles of assessment for learning. We wanted to have a clear purpose around any assessment that we were using and ensure that we were using the information to improve our teaching and learning. And we've had Aero this week, and that was pretty much one of the questions that they were asking us, was how we're using our data to improve our students' achievement and progress. How will we record and share this information? How are we going to be making our overall teacher judgments? And they had suggested big ideas, concepts, techniques, skills, and strategies. And then obviously, how do we remain consistent when I've got a department of 20? How do we all come to the same ideas of, if my kid is consolidating, are they going to be consolidating in another class with a different teacher in front of them? So I guess my focus around assessment for learning has been clarity, particularly adjusting our staff to going, well, what is different about the previous curriculum to what we're supposed to be teaching now? Effective feedback and reflecting on our learning for both our students, reflecting on their own learning and figuring out what their next steps are, and what us as teachers receiving that information and that assessment detail, and how we need to either reflect on our own practice, particularly when we're teaching new content, trying to capture understanding that prior knowledge required for the students to move forward and meet what is required at their year level, and then potentially have to reteach things when it hasn't gone so well. So I think this was flying around the New Zealand maths teachers yesterday. So what I did is we looked at the curriculum, and for every topic, we broke down what are the learning outcomes, very similar to the old school I Can Do sheets. This is shared on the folder that I shared earlier in the chat. So that brings clarity to the students and to the teachers about what is required. So that's just part of the number one. We were aiming for consistency, work smarter, not harder. So we were always wanting to make sure that we were checking for understanding both informally and formally. So we were doing things like diagnostic questions as an exit ticket, or this one here is maths by error or maths by example, where this was consistent across the department for every kind of end of the lesson. But again, obviously, you had to judge and be responsive to the kids in front of you. We were doing consistent homework for retrieval opportunities. So it was 1 week. I think you have maybe up to 12 questions that the kids had to do. Students seem to be out of practice with homework at the moment, so we're trying to reintroduce that. So some questions that were linked on to what they had covered this week, what they had covered last week, what they covered 4 weeks ago, and some more kind of the exceeding style questions, linking things together, generalizing, all that kind of stuff at the end. We put in checkpoints every couple of weeks when you kind of have a natural end to a topic. So this was consistent across our department, and we were collecting information on this one around how much they got as a percentage. These were based on only kind of like we would consider achieved level skills, and it was connected to that checklist. So the kids had an idea of, hey, I'm still not sure, or I missed that lesson around square roots or approximating roots, and so oops, I don't know that, I need to go and work on that themselves. I have put anything that I've made on the checklist in that folder as well if you're interested. Then we came to our typical assessments. I guess we're quite a traditional school. We do topic by topic by topic. And so as you can see, like the first one there is 401, which is around operations with negative numbers. And back on that student checklist, the first one on that list was operations with negative numbers. And so we had to straddle, because we have something called the junior diploma. We still straddle with the not achieve, developing, achieve, merit, excellence grades. And as you can see, we did 1 out of 20. And so when I looked at that student checklist, there was about 20 skills-ish that the students were asked to be able to do in the number unit. And I was just like, well, how do I do this? If we were going to work with percentages, if I was going to give kind of like an excellent style question, kind of 4 points, but I had a kid who was not ever going to be able to even approach that question or feel comfortable, confident with that question, that's a lot of points to even just miss out. And they were never ever going to hit that 50% line for passing. And so we just looked at those kind of achieved skills and gave that 20 out of 20 as that kind of percentage base, but allowed the merit and excellence style questions to show us whether they were able to make those connections or generalizations, which would be showing them whether they were exceeding or not. So how we marked it. So I thought for a student to be passing, we'd give like 12 out of the 20 skills. That's a huge step up to kind of our previous years. And even then, I think it's probably easier to pass an NCVA where they might have to show assessment where they have to show 3 skills. We're asking our kids to show 12. And so that's our not achieved to excellence. And that's how we mapped it through. So if a student was able to show consistently, able to and independently apply or justify, depending on the question, that we consider them proficient. I have heard other schools using, or a local school nearby to ours was using like 2/3, but we felt comfortable with that kind of 60% line. We also looked in around the difference between our merit and excellence questions, and we both thought we would consider them exceeding. Any questions on that one there?
What is achieved plus 2 means? Is it merit?
Okay, yeah, perfect. So for them to be getting merit, they had to show the 12 skills at achieved level. And then we had some specified questions that we considered merit or excellence. And so they had to get 12 achieved skills and then get 2 of the merit questions right to do a merit overall.
Is it like NCA questions, contextual questions we used to have in year 9 and 10?
It depends on the style. So it might require kind of showing or demonstrating 2 skills. It might show more of an explain. You can have a look. I put in our year 9 and our 10 number tests if you want to have a look in that in the folder that I shared. And so it might be just more than one skill making those connections. For example, in our algebra one that I'm writing at the moment, we're trying to showing the connection between like area or perimeter of a shape or angle rules and solving equations. So giving opportunities for students to show that they can make those connections.
So Laura, you've got achieved, it's 12 questions plus skills, is it? The D is
showing they had to show 12 or more skills out of that 20.
Okay, 20 skills, all right.
So
and some of them will have some 2-step or 3-step questions which require a little bit of explanation, and excellence will be an extended response one. Yeah?
Potentially, yeah. It depends on how we wrote it up.
How do you differentiate between imaging and the developing?
Great question. We're heading in that direction.
So I have one more question. Like the I can do sheet skills you gathered, is it directly coming from the new refreshed curriculum? Isn't that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. That's my best shot, and it hasn't been moderated. So if you want to give me critique, please do. But it was my best shot because it helps me bring clarity. It brings clarity to my staff. It brings clarity to my students, knowing what is expected in an assessment. So I don't get asked what's in the test, miss. I'm like, you know what's in the test. It is all over our books. It's all over our slideshows, all of that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
So this is just one piece of evidence, though. They did a bit of a brainstorm. And this is all information that we should be somewhat considering around making our overall teacher judgment. So our topic tests and our checkpoints, we don't really do exams at Roskill for our juniors. Other subjects do though. That's kind of ones that are similar or they're consistent. Our homework, obviously we don't know if it's been used by AI or being rushed in the hallway, but that's something that we've got consistent across the department. Some of the exit tickets are, but we ultimately also need to be using our professional judgment. And it's hard to remain consistent with that. And so we were being, and also we've got external assessment, whether it's PATs, our SMART. Should we talk about SMART or not? We'll leave that one. Or EASTL, which is disappearing by the end of this year. So it's kind of looking at all of this information and making our overall teacher judgment. So what I asked our staff to do is we did primarily make that overall teacher judgment on the topic tests. But for example, I'm teaching the kind of our enhanced learning class in year 9. I had a student who got achieved in that test. So he got merit in that test, but he only showed 12 of those skills. And I was just like, okay, that's cool, but you did 2 merit questions. And I was like, okay, do I think I would consider you exceeding? So I was like, because you're kind of on that boundary, yes, you met that criteria. And I was just like, okay, well, what have I seen in class? When we're doing a low floor, high ceiling task or rich task, how's that conversation going? Are you participating in class discussion? Are you showing me that you are beyond proficient? And I was like, no. And so I used my professional judgment. I'm like, yeah, at the moment, you are proficient. So something that is also with this reporting mid-year is that consolidating is also currently meeting the standard. It changes at the end of the year when it is proficient and exceeding is what is meeting the standard. I'm not sure how we're going to see if you've taught a topic, how you're going to see if they've improved by the end of the year. I'm not sure about that one. So the emerging and developing, again, if you hit a borderline, you might go, okay, well, how did they do in those kind of 2 weekly checkpoints? They kind of show me that they could do it 50% of the time. I wonder if they're just not coping with like a formal test situation when they lose all confidence, or if we've got a memory concern. But when they're doing their book work or the conversations that I'm having, like, is it you like really got nothing going on and it's really hard to move you, or are you making some progress with some support you can get there and then have a try at another one? And so I've been using those, particularly those emerging and developing, as again that kind of that teacher judgment, particularly on those boundary cases. But if I got a kid who in the checkpoints is getting like 100% in the test, they're at excellence, it's like a no-brainer. And it's just those boundary cases that we're having conversations around.
Laura, sorry to interrupt. Can I just ask, are you giving them 2 different types of words for the same type of level of ability? So you're using developing, and then the other one was not achieved. So are you telling them they're not achieving and they're at developing stage as well, or are you just going with the NDAM model?
So we, because they wanted consistency across all subjects, we are doing the NDAME for reporting back on assessments. But then we are also then using all of the information that we've got on the screen at the moment to then make a progress descriptor on how they're doing in each strand. And so potentially, we are talking about if a kid is at achieved, they're probably falling in the proficient category. But then we'll go, was it kind of boundary? How are they doing in class with all the other information that we have? So
when you're explaining it to the child, are you telling them they're achieved or proficient?
We are telling them that they're at achieved.
Yeah.
And then on the reporting document, then it'll say that we think they're proficient.
Right. Okay.
And so, yeah, the year 9s have had this language given to them at intermediate, depending on the progress that they have made with the intermediate. And so the parents, I'm hoping, are a little bit more familiar with it, but we are giving them the an overall kind of, this is what it means. Your kids are probably going to be doing worse than what you're expecting because of the major shift in the content moving further down the year levels.
I like the NDAM. I think as a parent,
yeah, for sure,
kids are all grown up, but it's sort of the achieved thing is to me, proficient seems too high a word for achieved. It feels, it's kind of like a soft kind of word, whereas achieved is a bit more solid that you can hold on to. So I would rather go that way, but it seems the government and the phase wants to use these, developing, and
because excellence was too hard for a parent to understand.
Well, obviously, but I understand it.
I don't know if you were a part of the head of department day the other day where the person who was in charge was like, well, it's not going to be based on percentages. We're like, are we talking about standard-based assessment? But that's opening a whole can of worms, which we'll wait and see what the Ministry of Education actually publishes. Yeah.
So, Laura, what you're
consolidating
saying,
seems such a weird word. Consolidating, what does that mean?
For sure. I hear you on that. And it's a matter of working with what we've got, with the information that we have, and how we move forward with that.
Yeah.
Laura, what you're saying here is like a parent will be seeing if a child in the number strand like achieved or merit, and then also they will be getting an report saying that overall where the child is proficient or not. Is that what that means? They will have all the mark book record and as well as the general report.
Yes. Yeah. So they'll have their mark book of their list of the assessments that they've done, which is going to be only our topic tests. Then they'll have the overall, the progress descriptor for each of their strand, which again will be number, and for us, number and maybe a little bit of algebra for our year 9s, and number and measurement for our year 10s. And then an overall descriptor where we're kind of looking at how they've done so far in the last 16 weeks.
Yeah. One more question on this diagram. Your diagram splits into department-wide assessment and the national assessment. What if a child results looks different in both? Like, for example, in topic test, it could be proficient, and in the national wide, it could be very low. So is that matching or will it be the same?
I don't trust SMART at the moment. That's what we used this year. It wouldn't have passed my moderation because there was content that was not phase 4 or by the end of year 9. So, for example, in the year 9 test, they had currency conversions. Currency conversions is expected at year 10, not year 9. And so they'll probably have their reasons of why they were doing that. And so it was one kind of benchmark. So we didn't factor in our SMART tool results. For that, our hope was that just like Astral does, they would kind of print out going, hey, this is what the student can do and what their next steps are, for us to be able to write those report comments. But a lot of those reports that are coming out is in term 3, which is too late for us. And so that's why we kind of put ourselves into that SMART category. Astral obviously does that. And so it is, again, a SMART test. I mean, anything, a SMART test and a topic test is just kind of a high stakes assessment, regardless of what the ministry says. And you do have to look at holistically with those kids, and you have to make that judgment of going, how they're doing in class. I've got this information. Where do I put that weight?
Sorry to interrupt. I'm just wondering, because we have only about 10 minutes more, we will let Laura continue with her presentation, and can we hold off all the questions, comments till the end? Thank you.
We're pretty much at the end. I don't know how many people we have, and we can, and so I guess my questions to you because I will wrap it up and then we can have more questions. So it's just like, well, what changes have you made, if any, to align with the new curriculum? And how you and your schools making overall teacher judgments? And someone said right from the beginning, how do we make this process manageable? But to answer my first question around our title is what matters most is that we notice, we respond, we recognise and we respond to the kids in front of us. And that is what assessment for learning is that we are constantly through, I mean, as you can see, so many pieces of evidence that we collect on our kids, noticing what they are saying to their friends, what are they writing down in their books, all the whiteboards, how are they doing the topic tests. We recognise where there's misconceptions, where are the common errors, and then we use that information where we're responding, whether we reteach, check it in a heimaki, pull a small group together at the back of the room who had that common issue. But that is what matters, not our reporting stuff, because this is what's going to accelerate our kids' progress, not what we put on a report card. So, 5 minutes of questions. Go for I don't know how many people we've got in the meeting now. I don't think we probably have time for breakouts.
There's 21 of us here.
Okay.
You're probably right.
Sweet. Questions, comments, anyone want to share what they're currently doing?
Yeah, I'm interested about how other schools are doing things too. So English and maths have got this twice a year reporting kind of requirements. Our school, for instance, we decided that all our year nines across all subjects were going to get emerging to exceeding grades as their results for all their learning outcomes and things like that. Keen to hear whether other schools have made that across all year. We haven't done it year 10. We're just letting our year 10s get through to NCA because that's where they're heading, and we'll implement that same sort of system in year 10 next year.
I mean, that's smart, splitting it. I kind of regret shifting our year 10s in terms of managing both my workload and my staff's workload. And I guess, in hindsight, I probably should have just focused on the year 9s.
Yeah, there's another question from Lisa. Where do you get the new end of topic tests from that match phase 4? Are all schools creating their own, or is there anything available from the MOE?
There's nothing from the MOE that I'm aware of, and I've been creating them myself. I know Walker Maths is doing something, but I think it's more for level 1, 2, and 3, but I don't know if not Walker Maths, Snedden Maths might be creating something for the juniors, but I haven't seen it yet. So yeah, I'm just making it up.
Sorry, I've got a question, Laura. When you say eASTL's going, the whole website, and that seems like a really useful tool in terms of next steps. Is that really disappearing?
Yeah.
Gone?
Yeah. So it's no longer aligned to the new curriculum. They have for this year mashed it up in terms of the levels of 6A, 6P, 5B. They've mashed it towards what is expected for phase 4. And we're talking about a year, I think it's a year 9 would be at 5P for them to be proficient. That's how much it's shifted. And so the Ministry of Education is no longer funding it. They're pushing everyone towards the SMART tool.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
I just have a quick question, if that's okay. I'm quite interested in like how do we ensure the consistency of these teacher judgments for the progress descriptors across schools? I don't know, they seem a bit vague to me and, involving quite a bit of judgment. And so how do we know that we're actually putting students at the right level?
We don't. That's the honest truth. We don't. And I guess that was what was one of the key issues around the numeracy project. If you've been around for the last kind of 10 years where the primary schools were doing this, we don't. And that's where you have that kind of, you would hope that would have that external measure that would kind of assist us with that. But the primary schools had the PAC tool. I don't know if many of you have had experience with that to kind of look at all the different pieces of evidence, or even the LFP framework, if you've been around the block for a wee while, the learning progression framework. But yeah, at this stage, we don't.
Sure, thanks.
There's another
Sorry.
question, Laura, in the chat. How do we change the percentages of results to the progress descriptors? Is there a rule on this?
There is no rule. And so I don't know if anyone is aware, people are being pulled to be moderators for SMART, but I think they might only be getting together in the next couple of weeks to make those calls, because I don't even know how they're going to create that 40 question test to from the 5 descriptors. But no, we don't know. And so I thought it was something that I talked with my senior leaders, and we landed on 60%. But yeah, so I feel like that those kind of the merit and excellence questions really talk about whether they're exceeding, and then that percentage base was kind of just looking at a cohort and breaking it up into kind of 20% percentiles. But yeah, that's going to be different across every school. So much for consistency, hey?
Laura,
So
I kind of like your idea on judging on the skills and interpreting to that proficient or not. Because, for example, if is school to school different topic test that has like lower number of skills, but if still they get 80% or 90%, that does not reflect the same thing. So I'm leaning towards what you said on checking on skills, like if they got 12 or more skills, then that would be easily interpreted towards the marking, right?
Yep, and I know other schools are doing like low floor, high ceiling tasks, and they are tracking the students' progress and what skills they're showing. And I don't know how, in terms of their marking, it seems quite a significant amount of marking to be doing and tracking every single skill that they're showing. That is also another option. I am very aware of the amount of pressure on my department and my colleagues with these changes, and I just don't think that is manageable. We can get the kids to tick off those checklists. I've been creating workbooks because nothing is aligned anymore, so that's at the front, so they will tick off and they will feel like whether they are confident with those skills so they can track themselves. But I don't want to put more pressure on my staff to be tracking individual skills throughout beyond an assessment.
Well, I would like to thank Laura for sharing all that you're doing at MRGS, at Mount Roskill Grammar. This is something that all departments, all schools are grappling with and thinking about as they implement. And you have shared with us what you do at Mount Roskill Grammar, and we can think about it and take it back to our staff and discuss this, and then we can refine it. You have given us lots to think about. And also, your idea of the proportion of questions with the skills and then the merit kind and then the excellence will ensure that we can make an OTJ or the overall teacher judgment. But otherwise, if there are all skills, it'll be different. And you talked about the progress markers and what is proficient, and we are all dealing with the terminology. But I loved your idea of getting students to reflect on their work and to write what they were really doing well and what their next steps are, where they can improve, and providing retrieval opportunities for students. So lots of good ideas from you, Laura. And thank you for sharing all of that. And what I will do is to